Under a sky heavy with shadows, James and Tú Diệp pressed into the night, their footsteps unsteady yet driven by something stronger than fear: unyielding love. Each step felt like defiance against fate, as though the darkness itself wanted to swallow their hope. But the image of baby Nye's innocent smile, her laughter bright and untarnished by the weight of the world, was the anchor pulling them forward. Danger loomed in every corner, uncertainty pressed against their chests, but still they moved. Their love had become a beacon, guiding them toward the child who meant everything. Would courage be enough to bring Nhi safely back into their arms? A village wrapped in silence. The night was unnaturally quiet, the kind of silence where every heartbeat sounded too loud. James tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his headlights slicing the blackness of the rural road. Beside him, Tú Diep's hands trembled in her lap, but her eyes burned with a determination that refused to break. Baby Nhi was missing. Each passing second grew heavier, pressing against their ribs with unbearable weight. Only hours earlier, their lives had been ordinary. Diep selling fresh melons at the market, James buried in contracts for the farm, Nhi giggling between spoonfuls of breakfast. They had even quarreled gently, about teaching Diep to ride a motorbike, about James's strict father who still disapproved of their decision to raise Nhi together. All of those worries dissolved instantly when their neighbor, Hung, called. Someone had seen a shadowy figure leading a small child away from the village's edge. For Tú Diep, panic struck like claws at her chest. Nhi wasn't just a child under her care, she was her heartbeat, her promise to heal a little girl who had already lost too much. James reached across the console and squeezed her trembling hand. "We'll find her," he whispered, his voice steady though his pulse thundered in his ears. The pink sandal. The village lay in shadows, save for a few flickering street lamps. They searched the schoolyard first, calling Nye's name into the night air. Only crickets answered. No child's voice. Then, near a roadside ditch, Tú Diep froze. Her breath caught at the sight of a tiny shoe, the same pink sandal Nhi had worn that morning, abandoned in the dirt. Panic threatened to drown her, but James knelt beside the shoe, his jaw clenched. James had faced pressure before: contracts, rivalries, even his father's unforgiving expectations. But this was different. This was family. Following faint footprints, they moved toward the old irrigation canal, where farmers sometimes stored their harvest. The air smelled of wet earth and rain on the horizon. Then came the sound. A whimper. Tú Diep froze. James lifted a hand, signaling silence, his eyes sharpened to slits. The whimper came again, softer this time, from behind a stack of hay bales. The confrontation. James moved forward quietly, his phone's flashlight cutting the darkness. A silhouette jerked upright. John. The bitter rival who once tried to sabotage James's business. His face was hard, but his hands shook. "Stay back," John hissed, clutching Nye's arm. Her wide eyes brimmed with terrified tears. "John, please," Tú Diep pleaded, her voice trembling but soft. "She's just a child." Her words hung fragile in the cold night air. James stepped closer, his body rigid, ready to fight. His voice was calm, deep, unshakable. "You don't have to do this. Hurting her won't fix what happened between us." For a moment, time itself seemed to hold its breath. Something flickered in John's eyes. Perhaps it was the memory of his own losses. Perhaps it was the sight of Tú Diep shielding Nhi with her body, refusing to let fear undo her resolve. Slowly, his grip loosened. His shoulders sagged beneath the crushing weight of his anger. Without another word, he let go. Then, like a ghost, he disappeared into the shadows, leaving only the sound of his retreating footsteps. Tú Diep dropped to her knees, clutching Nhi against her chest, sobbing with relief. James wrapped his arms around both of them, as though the world itself could fracture and he needed to hold the pieces together. The night was still dark. But it no longer felt empty. It pulsed with their breaths, their heartbeats, the quiet strength binding them together. Homecoming. They walked back toward the faint glow of village lights. Nye's small hand slipped into Tú Diep's, her steps fragile but steady. James glanced at them, his heart swelling with fierce love. Danger had tested them. But it had also revealed something unshakable. Together, they could face any darkness. At the edge of the village, neighbors stirred. Windows creaked open. Hung rushed forward, breathless. "You found her," he whispered, his relief glistening like tears. "We were ready to search the forest." "She's safe," James answered, though his voice carried the taut edge of adrenaline. But John, Hung began. "Let him go," James cut in. "Chasing him now will only make him desperate." Tú Diep knelt, brushing Nye's tangled hair, wiping her tear-streaked cheeks. "We're home now, sweetheart," she whispered. And when Nhi whispered back, "I was scared, Mama," the word cracked something inside Tú Diep, but in the best way. For the first time, NHI had called her mama again. Night reflections. Later, with NHI safe in bed, James stood by the window of their small home, shirt damp from the night's chase, staring at the horizon. Tú Diep handed him tea. I can't stop thinking about what John said, he murmured. He's still holding on to old wounds. And my father's disapproval, it's more than just appearances. It's the past. Do you think your father will make things harder for us? She asked quietly. James turned, his voice steady. He might, but tonight reminded me of what matters. I almost lost NHI. I almost lost you. Whatever my father says, whatever John tries, it doesn't matter more than keeping you both safe. Outside, crickets sang a steady chorus. For the first time in hours, the world seemed to exhale. The dawn after. Morning sunlight streamed across the wooden floor. NHI was already awake, humming softly on the bed's edge. Tú Diep watched, gratitude swelling in her chest. James slept in a chair nearby, still protective even in rest. Stepping outside into the garden, Tú Diep touched the dew on melon vines and whispered a promise. Fear and anger would not tear apart the fragile happiness they had built. James joined her, weary but resolute. We'll face it all, John, my father, whatever comes. She smiled, fierce and quiet. Together, for the first time, she truly believed it. Shadows return. By evening, whispers rippled through the village. Neighbors brought gifts. Bread, rice soup, a handmade toy. NHI clung shyly to Tú Diep's leg, still wary. James stayed vigilant, every shadow suspicious. He knew John wasn't finished. And his father's arrival was imminent. As the sunset painted the sky orange and purple, James, Tú Diep, and NHI walked down the dirt path near the melon fields. NHI skipped, her laughter returning like sunlight after storm. Do you think your father will forgive us? Tú Diep asked. James stared at the horizon. I don't need his forgiveness for loving you and choosing NHI. I just need him to see it isn't a mistake. Her heart tightened. She knew tradition and pride could wound more deeply than knives. To many, she would always be just a single mother who didn't belong. But then Yi's giggles broke the silence as she chased a firefly, fragile joy glimmering in the dusk. For a moment, everything felt perfect, until a voice broke the calm. James. John stepped from the shadows, face weary but edged with bitterness. You think last night solves everything? You think you can just walk away with her? James shielded Tú Diep and NHI. I don't want to fight. But you crossed a line. John's voice cracked. Your family took everything from mine. And now you stand here as a hero? Tú Diep's voice, soft but deliberate, cut through. Revenge won't heal what's broken. You nearly destroyed a child's trust. Don't make this worse. For a moment, regret flickered in John's eyes. But then, the crunch of tires. A black sedan rolled to a stop. A tall, silver-haired man stepped out, gaze sharp as steel. James's father. His voice was cold, controlled. So this, he said, surveying the scene, is the chaos you've built. The air thickened. The sun sank. Darkness gathered once more. But Tú Diep reached for James's hand. Fingers intertwined, they silently vowed not to back down. They had rescued hope once. This time, they would defend it. Lessons from the night. Family is chosen, not imposed. True family is built through care, responsibility, and love, not tradition or bloodlines. Courage shines brightest in the dark. Fear could have paralyzed James and Tú Diep, but love turned them into heroes. Forgiveness heals deeper than revenge. John's bitterness showed how revenge only deepens wounds. Healing requires empathy, integrity over approval. James's father embodied pride and societal expectation. James chose integrity and love instead. Hope can be rescued too. Beyond saving NHI, they saved the hope that unity and love endure, even in darkness.